So what appears to be a part of the human ability to harness story as a means of coordinating collaboration, it turns out to be our downfall and our biggest superpower. And one of the traditions from my childhood that I just told you about, it stands out to me and almost to a level of like mythical quality. And when it was first explained to me, it was explained with the words, "We build it together." So now I'm going to ask you to collaborate with me, with us, to build this sonic world together. Take your hands. Do this. Doesn't have to be fast. Doesn't have to be loud. Just listen. All right, that's great. So when you see me do that, you can do that. How about if you take your hands and we go like this? Oh, let's try and do it together. That was pretty good. All right. How about if you take your hand and you do this? Yeah. Not together. Absolutely not together. Just like, oh, the sound of meat hitting meat. Great. If you take your fingertips, you tap them on something next to you. I don't know. Here. Not too loud. All right. Then we're gonna whistle. Who can whistle? That sounds good. Okay, let's whistle one note together. All right, everyone whistle a different note, not the same note as your neighbor. Oh, that's beautiful. I like the whistle flyer. And the last one, this is something you do with your throat. We call it vocal fry. It's basically you let your throat really loose. You just kind of like, that's fantastic. All right, so if you see me do that, you can follow the, you'll get the idea. All right, now that we have those things figured out, just keep in mind that what I'm talking about isn't really what I'm talking about, okay? And the sounds that we create, someone's got it, come on. Yeah, you can do it too. These sounds are certainly only representative of the described actions in the most abstract way possible. And one last thing, there are no wrong notes. Paul, Alan, there's no wrong notes. All right, let's begin. Now, the pioneers in the north, largely settled in a region by a motley crew of Norwegians and Finnish and Swedish, where the growing season was short. And the winter snows piled high. The customs which defined this tough life centered on collaboration with one's neighbors. Participation in the community could determine whether one would perish or survive and thrive. Among the customs which evolved in this era, in the isolated mosquitoes and snow, the most transformative in my experience was the raising of a new house. Often, while the bonfires of the wedding party still were smoldering, able-bodied family and friends fetched their tools and their cookware and converged in a virgin valley or atop a rocky rocky hill. The trees could already be heard crashing. In the forest around, dragged by horse and men to the work field and to be hewn for construction. Above the campfire, sizzling game and bubbling broth wafted through the air, surrounded by the busy bodies of wives and daughters. For the labor in those days was still, by and large, divided. Amongst the raw lumber and blades, a gaggle of youngsters, keen to prove their worth, began to prepare wood. Removing the branches and the bark, they eventually planed with blades. Seemingly unendless piles of shavings is carried by the youngest of the helpers to kindle the fires of the rough outdoor kitchen. And in the midst of the Virgin Valley, 100 shovels rhythmically strike the ground. For as my great-grandfather told him, his father, you must go down before you can go up. And once the forms are set, a mixture of rock and lye fills them up, and the hewn beams are laid with the utmost care, for this is the foundation upon which all else will be leveled and squared. Now as hewn lumber makes its way to the site, the saws begin in concert, cutting boards to length for the first wall. A hammer hits a nail, joining the top plate to the beam. And although nails were a growing part of the process, the more common wooden pins continue to be used today because they can be fashioned on site. And soon, the uneven thunder of 20 or 30 hammers fills the air, and walls spring up from the storm like lilies. On the backs of many uncles, cousins, and brothers, large roof beams make their way slowly toward the site. Like millipedes, they carefully scale the walls and join in a point high above. One agile youth shimmies up the beam to where they join and fixes them with a wooden pin. Yells of joy and celebration resound throughout the valley. And the beams appear encouraged by the sound, now rising in quick succession to the youth hanging in the apex. Hayu! Now, as if propelled by the magnetism of the iron ore in the region, the lumber appears to fly into place, capping the roof, closing the previously naked walls, framing in the windows and the doors. Moving at quite a clip, the humans appear to blur before the eyes. Such a torrent of collaboration. And as the sun sets, the saws transform into fiddles. And the fires go bright. The jubilation of a new seed in the community weaves into the melodies carried from some faraway place. And as the sun rises on the fresh building, a new home is born.